behind me somewhere.
We're live.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It brings me great pleasure to introduce my friend John Hickey, who is an executive with UPMC Health Plan. He and I have done a bunch of volunteer work over the years, and on behalf of the Mission Committee, we are about to introduce our project as part of our gift for our 300th anniversary. And so this is the kickoff for it. We have decided that we want to support a tiny house for the homeless veterans in this community. John is a member of the board of this organization that's putting all of this together, and he is here today to share how it came to be and what the plans are and all the opportunities that we have. So, John, welcome.
Thanks, Marion. So hopefully Sue is back doing her thing, so hopefully you can see my screen. Again, I'm John Hickey. I'm on the board of Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania. I also work for UPMC Health Plan, and I'm a veteran of the U.S. Navy. This opening slide, I can tell you a little bit about Veterans Outreach, but I just want to point out this opening slide really gives you the information of Jordan Ames. Major Ames couldn't be with us today. He had a commitment out of town, but he is our executive director and the person for day-to-day contact, and his contact information is here, and if anybody needs it afterwards, I can give you that. Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania is a 501c3. Our mission is we stand to combat homelessness among veterans by providing support and services needed to promote an empowered life filled with strength and purpose. And really this is the brainchild of Tom Zimmerman, who's currently our board chair, and one of his friends, Val. And Val, unfortunately, they were the original founders. Val just passed away unexpectedly last year, so is no longer with us. Tom is continuing on with Tom, his wife, and then there's a board of community volunteers like me. The plan was, Val in particular she was a counselor working with people experiencing homelessness and other issues, and she had someone come into her purview that was a veteran, and that person over time she became close with, and she just thought it was not right that veterans did not have more support from the VA and from other sources when they were experiencing homelessness. And so that really was the genesis of her and Tom. She reached out to her friend Tom looking for something to do. They went and looked. There are actually other communities like the one that we're proposing or that we're building here. There's one in Kansas City is the first one. There's one in Racine, Wisconsin, and there's a couple others that have formed over the last few years in a similar model where the first need is sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The first thing you do with someone who is unhoused and experiencing homelessness is let's get them someplace where they're sheltered, that first most basic need of being sheltered overnight, and then start to address some of the issues that cause that person to become homeless. So we're going to build, starting Monday, tomorrow, we're going to break ground. We're going to build a community center. I like to start with the community center. What resonates and what people remember are the tiny homes themselves, because of that they see it a lot on TV. They see this little home shows. But what we're talking about really is the community center. That's the heart of this. The community, you can see if you get the brochure going on our website, the community will be arranged in the shape of a heart of the homes around the community center, next to the community center. And the community center will provide, people are going to eat together. The folks that are living with us are going to have meals in common. We're going to have, addiction treatment meetings, so AA and meetings and other meetings will be held there. We're going to have treatment rooms. There's a team of folks called the Street Medicine Team from UPMC, where I work. And this street medicine team actually is currently providing care on site at homeless encampments throughout the city. And so during COVID, people who are experiencing homelessness got vaccinated. They have medical records. They have people. It's pretty much primary care. I mean, say it's not primary care, but it's pretty much primary care where we have nurses and nurse practitioners who actually follow individuals like it was a primary care doctor that they were going to see. We know that we have people with chronic disease and those sorts of things. We're going to work closely with UPMC. UPMC Foundation has actually made a significant donation to this project in their in the theory that it's a continuum of the care that we're providing to the underprivileged, underserved folks in Harrisburg. So we're already seeing, UPMC is already seeing these folks in the emergency room and in other venues, and we said, look, this is just taking it a step further and trying to get them well holistically in the Veterans Care Center. So like I said, the foundation made a multi-year significant gift to us, $500,000. I mean, I can say it's $500,000. And that the community center will be named the UPMC Foundation Community Center. There's also we've had other significant donors. I really brought up the UPMC one to just emphasize that there's a continuum of care that is being provided to the veterans who will be living with us. I sort of have already moved on to the next bullet, which is the therapeutic housing model. But really, this is what I believe is going to set us apart, even from our peers at other tiny home villages around the country. We've been working with the Capital Area Coalition on Homelessness, with Christian Churches United, and other local entities who are currently handling and doing outreach to the homeless community in Harrisburg. And we're going to, Bill Reed, who actually runs the Veterans Homeless Outreach and the homelessness issues at the YWCA of Harrisburg, is on our board. And we're developing a therapeutic model that is, it's an individualized plan. So each person that comes to us will have a plan specific to them, because it's not a monolithic population. There are many reasons that people become homeless. And so some may have substance use disorder issues, some may not. Some may have other issues, financial, educational. We've already had discussions with Judge Tully at the Veterans Treatment Court. I don't know how many of you are aware, we can talk about this after I get through the presentation. There's a court specifically to deal with veterans and treatment issues in Dauphin County. I've actually attended an educational session. In the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, there's, I think, over 30 treatment courts in the various counties, and locally Judge Tully runs that. So we've already met with him, we've already talked about that model. And our model, so each person will have an individualized plan, and therefore one of the questions that's very commonly asked is, how long will people be living there? Is this permanent housing? And the answer is, no, it's transitional housing for us. The tiny homes are actually just over 200 square feet. They are not designed to really, they're shelter, but they're not, you don't want to live there forever, because it's basically a small room. It's to get you shelter while you're becoming well enough to reintegrate into society a little better. And so that individualized plan, we're going to work out a plan with each person as they come in. They're going to agree to work their plan. So there is accountability, and again, this is sort of the military model. There is accountability to the person to work the plan that they have engaged in and make progress on that plan. Now, obviously we understand that people are going to slide back, and there's going to be some recidivism, but each plan will be tailored, and so some may be 90 days and some may be 180 days and some could be longer. But the idea is we're going to work with people to get to the point where they're well enough to move on to the next phase, whatever that phase is for them. We've already talked with HAC, we've talked with Central Penn College, we've talked with workforce development folks. So we've really moved forward on how we will, maybe someone needs to get their GED. Maybe someone needs to get that next level of training that will allow them to become employable on a more permanent basis, because obviously that's very much a barrier to folks. If they can't be employed, it's hard to have the income necessary to have housing on a stable basis. Our outreach is, we already talked about that we're collaborating with numerous folks. This need really grew when we looked into it in central Pennsylvania. We talked to, and this is a point in time, I want to emphasize on this slide, it's hard to get a census of homeless folks in central Pennsylvania or anywhere, because not many people are going to step forward and say, yes, I'm currently unhoused. And there are stages of homelessness. I think most people associate homelessness with people they see on the street corner, living in, on top of a box, and depending on the city you're in, there can be significant homeless populations. In Harrisburg, you will see significant infrastructure around certain encampments. There's been a lot of news lately about Mulberry Bridge encampment that got moved because of infestation and other problems. And that encampment, my understanding is it had a system of government. There was a mayor there, and it had been there a long time. And there are a lot of folks on the streets that have substance use disorder, and they were having a lot of drug issues there in addition to having an infestation problem. But in Pennsylvania at any given time, and again, I know this is dated by a couple years, the number was 982 veterans experiencing homelessness. And for us, there's up to 40. And again, homelessness can be the folks that you associate with homelessness when you see holding a sign up saying, I'm homeless. But there's also people that are homeless that are couch surfing. That they aren't necessarily out on the street, but they do not have a home. We're talking about folks that are at risk for homelessness and people who are currently homeless. 15, we know that the number runs around 25 a night of people who are truly unhoused and are not couch surfing and they're on the streets, depending on the time of year. Again, in wintertime, people find accommodations. But of those 25 people, we know that not everybody will desire to come because they don't necessarily want to be accountable and get well because again, there's a number of things, mental health issues and other things that cause people to become homeless. The land is, people often ask about where it is. If most people are familiar with the PennDOT building, it's the biggest landmark near where we're going to be. The PennDOT building is at the end of Sycamore Street. If you go to the PennDOT building and go south, there's a 20-acre parcel at the end of there. I can move my cursor. So this is the PennDOT parking lot. If you go south, 20 acres is there, and there's currently, it's where the Greenbelt has historically run. And this, you can see that's the bridge in the Greenbelt, and the Greenbelt used to run all the way down around our property. It now just goes across the bridge. It does not go through our property any longer. The property was donated to us by Peggy and Michael Grove. They gave us the southernmost 5 acres. They also gave us some acreage across the Paxton Creek there that's not really accessible. But long term, we hope to perhaps get some donated construction to get us a bridge across that so that you could have, we've talked about gardening, we've had someone from Rotary that Marion and I know in retirement is a beekeeper. So we've talked about that. Activities that really take advantage of the bucolic nature of where we're going to be, and really it's so peaceful down there by the river. We really think it's an ideal location. It is above the 100-year floodplain, so people, that's always the second question people ask. Where is it, and then how will it flood? And the answer is the 100-year floodplain means that on any given day there's a 1% chance that you will get flooded. I just read about this week. And the 500-year floodplain is obviously 1/5 of that. It is within the 500-year floodplain, but pretty much all of downtown Harrisburg is in the 500-year floodplain. UPMC Harrisburg is in, all those places on Front Street are in, all of Shipoke is in the 500-year floodplain. The last time we saw that, I believe, was 1972, when the water reached the 2nd floor of my house on the Connedaguana Creek. So I can tell you I know about the floodplain, or I know it.
Wow.
Peggy, the things that we've accomplished since we began talking about this 3 years ago. I joined the board just over a year ago. We got title to the land. We did the environmental studies because, again, it was an old mill. You needed to look at what was there. Actually, that's probably a benefit to us that it was an old mill. If you look at this on Google Earth, for those of you that are joining us remotely, there's a pin there that says Phoenix Park, because it was the Phoenix Mill that was there. And so it's near Phoenix Park. It's just south of where that pin is on Google Earth. But you had to run through a lot of that stuff, and it was actually the fill and the stuff that when they built that mill is really what got us up over the 500-year floodplain, or over the 100-year floodplain, excuse me. We got variances in land development plan approved by City Council. We got environmental approvals. We cleared the land of trees, crushed concrete, and planted trees. I wanted to acknowledge the fact that when we did that, that was done through donated labor and donated equipment. The Red Horse Squadron, the 121st Red Horse Squadron from Indian Town Gap, which is it's not construction, I'm again a Navy guy, I think of CB's the construction battalion, but these are folks that what they do is they come in and they build infrastructure in places where the Army needs infrastructure. And they came down, Cleveland Brothers donated the yellow gear, and they were able to clear the trees, do that stuff, and then we had a huge rock crusher because there were still sections of the mill there that they ran through the rock crusher that will be used as foundation for some of the infrastructure that's going to be put in place. We also had a church group that built us a model tiny home on a small trailer. It is not the exact model of what we're going to be doing, but it allows us to take it to events and give people an idea of the scale. The reason it's not exactly what we're going to be doing is it wouldn't fit on a trailer. So you couldn't drive it around, you couldn't take it places, but it's small and it lets people, again, when we come to events that will be there tomorrow, Bill, it allows people to get some sense of what we're talking about. We've also raised over $4 million through our ongoing capital campaign, including the $50,000 commitment from Derry Presbyterian, and we really appreciate that. It's really one of the reasons I'm here today is just to thank you all for your participation. And Mary and Bill have also made a significant contribution, and thank them. We have $1.5 million in RAC P, which I cannot remember. I can never remember what those 4 initials are necessary for, but it's government money that the previous administration committed to. It is a matching fund, so you have to raise money and it matches off against that money, but again, that's just a blessing to have gotten that. And we've established relationships, I already spoke about this, with others serving those experiencing homelessness in Harrisburg. Again, UPMC Central PA, church groups, the Capital Area Coalition on Homelessness, who is most often seen when you read articles about when there's issues in moving an encampment or talking about that, which even this week has been in the press because there's been a lot of talk about whether part of one of the communities is on private land or is on the Greenbelt land in the southern part of Harrisburg. We will be breaking ground tomorrow at 11 a.m., so watch for news coverage of that. This is a 3D view inside the tiny home. As you can see, it is basics. There is a shower, there is a bed, there is a microwave, there will be a TV on the wall, and places to store your stuff. Again, the length of time that people will spend with us will vary based on their individualized plan, and I fully expect that once we have someone move on, we will flip those, but I imagine that will involve painting, and we will, I think that the model some others have talked about that they use in the other communities in Racine and Kansas City is people take the stuff with them, they take the bed with them, and you furnish the place because that gives those folks a start at the next place. The community center, as I described, is the heart of this area. It is 6,500 square feet. You can see there's a general community room, there's a meditation room, activity rooms, there's offices for our staff. We will have, in addition to major aims, we will have a couple folks there that are, across social worker, counselor, and helping us manage the plan, people that have been in this space before. We are working out the budget and it's going to grow as I don't think, it's not like day one we're going to flip a switch and 15 people are going to move in. You're going to have to identify people. There will be some level of an interview process to ask what again, to talk about this plan and how they may participate. But there are, when all these flex space rooms are likely to be examination rooms, like again, we're going to provide some level of medical services there. They will not be anything, it won't be major medical stuff, right? We are 1.2 miles from UPMC Harrisburg. We are 1.6 miles from the courthouse. We are 1.7 miles from downtown Daily Bread. Why do I know this? Because people say, why did you pick that spot? And the answer is, it's really close to the places where people experiencing homelessness are currently receiving services. I will tell you, in other jurisdictions, other cities, they've sort of moved the homeless people out of the city to a place that is 5 miles, 10 miles outside the city, which is fine if you have bus service. And we will also have bus service. We expect that the bus services, the CAT service that currently runs to PennDOT, we're going to have it keep coming down the road to us. We're going to work closely with the Veterans Care Team at UPMC that is currently coordinating care at the Lebanon VA, and they run folks from there up to the VA all the time. We're going to have them make a loop through our spot. Again, it's just something I don't know that a lot of people know. My colleague Mark Magala, who's a 26-year Army vet, he was a medic in the Army. At some point, we realized that the veterans, and this is not the VOPA, this is the UPMC side of my hats. We realized that that the VA system can be a little Byzantine and difficult to get care through, just because of coordination care and the queues for receiving care. And we put together a concierge team that coordinates that and also provides care that would otherwise cause people to need to leave the area. So if they say, we don't do that at Lebanon, we need you to go to Walter Reed, we will raise our hand and say, we can do it for what you'd pay Walter Reed. And again, it lets people stay near their families. We're really working closely with Mark to move forward with that. In fact, Mark and I are the first people to have ever interviewed Jordan Ames, and it was just, like I said, that was just fate, a blessing, whatever you want to call it. But someone sent me Jordan's resume right as I was joining this board, and it was just perfect timing because he was leaving the Marine Corps.
You're 1.3 miles from the McCormick Library.
Okay.
Which is amazing. How many homeless persons spend a lot of time in that library daily?
I would think for shelter, right, during the day when it's cold in the winter and warm in the summer, and also just
they have a partnership with Dauphin County Human Services for that.
It's there are. It's interesting to me, having stepped into this only a year ago, there are so many organizations that are providing services to people who are unhoused, and they do try to coordinate and work together, but again, it's not a monolithic community. One of the reasons that our model we feel is necessary is, particularly for veterans, there are some veterans who have PTSD and other issues related to their time overseas, and so when you say, well, we have this lovely homeless shelter where people sleep overnight, but it's 20 people in a room, and it reminds them of being in a barracks when they were in Afghanistan. So there are reasons that the personal space in the tiny home is the model that we have chosen, as opposed to building a center where a bunch of people could sleep in a congregate setting, because that is triggering for a lot of veterans. And that also is unique as to why veterans need something a little different from the rest of the homeless community. The phases are project development, which was the legal and engineering and environmental and zoning approvals, which is complete. I told you about that. Phase 2, which is the site prep, construction of the road access, and bringing utilities to the site. That starts tomorrow. Again, if you look at the PennDOT parking lot, there is almost like a road at the eastern side of that parking lot. That will be extended down, and the utilities need to be brought down with that. Again, the Groves have been amazing in this. They're going to pay their pro rata share to bring it across their 15 acres, and we're really only paying for the bottom 5 acres. But it does add, that is one of the, again, being near the city is great, but one of the big challenges was getting utilities and the road run down there. Phase 3 will be construction of the village, which is the homes and the community center and the common area. And that's going to, obviously, once we get the infrastructure built, we'll do that. And then standing this thing up, recruiting and hiring the team, identifying residents and implementing the program. And we're told by our construction team that we should think 6 to 8 months. If it never rains again, which it appears might be possible, we get hail once a week but no rain, maybe we'll be able to get it done more quickly, and that would really be wonderful, because we really don't want another winter of veterans living on the streets of Harrisburg. This is a slide about things that have been named already, and I will point to the lower right-hand side, and it says the Derry Presbyterian Church is one of the organizations, which says there is, there under the asterisk down here, is one of the entities that's committed to fund a tiny home, and it is our hope long-term that there may be an opportunity to work on some of the construction of that tiny home, a volunteer opportunity for folks from the congregation. We're working that out with our general contractor. So, The support we've received from the community, I told you about Peggy and Michael, who've been amazing. They're our largest donor. Renewal by Anderson is donating all the doors, windows, and the labor to install them for both the community center and the tiny homes, which in itself is a retail value of $500,000. De Palma Construction is doing the roofing. Fitzpatrick is doing the showers and shower accessories. Ralph Jones is going to paint everything. Atlas Roofing is insulation. We've got D&H is giving us TVs. There's just, again, it's really, we're just blessed to have a project that resonates with so many folks, and including the folks here today. And it's really been great for us. And it runs all the way down to Donnie from DJ Smoke Shack, who every time we have an event provides free barbecue, right? He's a great guy. I don't know if you've ever met him. He's in the West Shore Farmers Market at the stand down there in the Smoke Shack. This is, you guys are already participating, but there are still opportunities for naming opportunities. The lowest end would be these bricks. One of the cool things that, and Jordan sort of came up with this, a lot of places had these bricks where you can memorialize someone and put them in a paver. We expect that we're going to put them in the center, where we're going to have a ring of flags representing each of the services. Yes, even the Space Force, we had to add one for that later. But we didn't actually think of that at the beginning. And we're going to, as part of the meditation, as part of the camaraderie and fellowship that we're going to be building, we're going to gather at that space, and maybe if someone wants to talk about why they donated a brick, this is for my father, this is for my brother. In my case, my father and my brother, we were all in the Navy. We were lucky enough for the Navy to pay for college for each of us and repaid our obligations through service. But you could talk about that person in your family and why you chose to donate a brick. So it will; those actually have sort of a they're going to be part of the model, not just part of the infrastructure. How you can help? Some of this is just raising awareness. Follow us on social media. Tell your friends and family. Share our posts and refer others who might. That you're like, I know someone who does this, and maybe they align, and you can tie them to us. Come to our events. We have. Our own events. We have a golf event coming up in the fall, but we've also had several other organizations do fundraisers for us. We had Stonebridge Financial ran a clay shoot the other day that raised over $30,000. We had a group of folks largely organized by Shirley Frisch, whose husband owns Higher Information Group, and Kate Euler, who's married to Jack Euler, who runs some of the Faulkner dealerships locally. They organize an event around Derby Day. Again, it's one of these things where people get to dress up, watch the race, and have fun. But they gave us a check the other day that approached, it was $78,000 and change. So we have had people do really wonderful things for us and give us money in large chunks that way. And again, if you want to visit our website, you can see that information. This is also from our site, but this really needs no explanation. Your support for this project will allow us to help the men and women who voluntarily took the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, for those of you who've ever taken that oath, right, Bill? And your support will help us restore trust and create opportunity one veteran at a time. So thanks. I know that it was pretty quick, right?
You did a pretty good job.
I've done this before. Not this speech, but I've been on my feet before in front of folks. So let me, I guess I can stop sharing. And does anybody have any questions? I know we had some beforehand.
Well, you had mentioned there are approximately 40 homeless in the Harrisburg area currently. How about York?
So we've looked at, because we've actually had other people that are looking to do this project. There's actually a major national organization that a year ago said they were going to end homelessness among veterans, and it's an organization that gives away $250 million a year. And they're buying hotels, putting community centers on the first floor, doing a transitional model in the empty rooms, but they're also building homes around the hotels because they know that some veterans homeless veterans are 65, 70 years old. They're not going back to work, right? So it's an interesting model. When we talked to them about it, we did a little research on that, And there are similar numbers in York and Lancaster, not quite, because the state capital, there's something about the state capital, there's more services available. But we believe that if you call that the catchment area, you know, the VA in Lebanon has a pretty big footprint. If you look at that catchment area, the number is up to 100. So we don't think that we're gonna have trouble filling the 15 homes if that's the.
No, I was just curious.
The other thing that my most serious flaw today was I forgot to mention the community center will not be restricted to only people living in our community. So there are people, veterans who are homeless, who need services, but for whatever reason don't come to us or aren't living with us any longer. We will still offer the fellowship and the food and some of the other things. We've met with Joe Arthur and his team from the Central PA Food Bank. We've talked about how we'll coordinate with them to provide shelf-stable food on site for us to prepare, because again, our budget is going to be, even as we move forward, is going to be 100% fundraising. We're not currently planning on billing the government or trying to coordinate the benefits of the folks that are living with us. There will be no charge. I know there's other folks they've built a model that is not veteran specific, but they actually have people pay because they believe that it causes them to be more invested. That's not our model. Yeah, so it's up to 100 people. We don't think we're going to have a problem finding space. We actually have, the approvals all allow us to expand by 30%. So we could build another 5 homes on site before we have to go back to the Commonwealth or the city or the DEP or anybody to get more approvals for the wastewater management and all the stuff that's going to go along with it. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
It's transitional housing, so is there a plan to educate the participants, basic skills to be able to, you know, keep their home neat and clean and, I don't know, cooking or whatever? Will they get that kind of assistance?
So the answer is yes, right? So we have, again, and there are nascent programs. I don't know, Marion I know knows John Sigilski, everyone calls him Ski, Dr. Ski, the president of HAC. He and I have spoken about this. He hired, over the last couple of years, he's hired someone to be director of veteran services at HAC, which is specifically designed to reach out to veterans, to pull them in to get community college education. Central Penn College has said the same thing to us. People that run GED programs have said the same to us, so let's address the educational, right? Then there's workforce development, and frankly, there's a lot of money available from the Commonwealth that runs programs on workforce development. We're going to try and integrate our folks to get them those services. And then we've had several employers, and again, my knowledge of how this works is somewhat UPMC specific. We have a person at UPMC, it's actually the person who sent me Jordan Ames' resume, who was his NROTC instructor when Jordan went through Penn State. He is running our effort. Our goal is to hire, we have a veterans employee resource group, so does Hershey Foods, so does several others. An employee resource group is a sort of an affinity group within a large employer. And that group at our place is one of our big initiatives is to hire veterans for jobs that we have. We have 2 big initiatives in workforce development at UPMC. We're the largest private employer in Pennsylvania. One is to hire people off our Medicaid rolls. So we run a Medicaid plan that has 500,000 people in it. Our goal is to hire 500 people a year out of that Medicaid pool and have them come work for us and do 2 things at once. 1, they're no longer on the Medicaid rolls, and 2, we're hiring people who understand the issues of the population we're serving. So yes, that and then there are other, there's I'm trying to remember, there's an organization on the West Shore that provides temporary housing. There's all, again, you got to find, we're trying to establish those lines with other organizations to have a continuum that gets people back up to, again, a long-term level of functionality that will hopefully prevent them from becoming homeless in the future.
You know, the United Way
And the United Way has a lot of,
a huge effort for workforce development.
and we also have a huge effort, again, it's Allegheny County centric because we have most of our employees there, but Dan LaValle, my colleague, has been working up here already talking to, what's the guy's, Jess McCree, who runs the workforce development in this area. So we've already had those discussions, and yes, the plan would be whether it's job skills, whether it's educational issues, that it's not just let's get you address your substance use disorder and let's get you warm at night. It is let's get you back to the point where you feel better about yourself and are ready to step back into society a little more.
Do you have any statistics on the success rates at Kansas City and Racine?
That's a great question, Bill, and the answer is I do not. And I have asked that question. Bill, Mary knows I've been a board member long enough. That was one I early asked on. And there's just, the answer is no, they don't have good statistics. And it's one of the things that I have said for VOPA, we will do differently from them. And that is, you've got to have some targets, you've got to have metrics so that 2 years from now I can say to you, hey, I need more money and here's why, right? I mean, just to be blunt, I mean, you have to prove to the people who are funding your operations that your operations are having a positive impact, and you can't just be all about feel good. There were some internal political things that happened. With the guy who founded the first one of these is a guy named Chris Stout, who's a combat retired veteran, Army veteran, and this was he was the sort of the father of this movement out in Kansas City. He left that organization, and I don't know if it was over this but so there's the ability to reach out and get stuff from those folks has been somewhat limited. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
When a veteran comes to your service, where, generally speaking, what type of background or immediate background did they have to come to this?
Well, I'll tell you two things. One, our board member, Bill Reed, that runs the YWCA's Veterans Outreach, has a pretty good idea at any given time who the homeless veterans are in Harrisburg. That the numbers I gave you before, I told you, it's a difficult census to take because the population moves and they're not subject to having an address where you know you can contact them every day. But and I'll give you Chris Stout's perspective. So we sort of know who the folks are. Their immediate background is, I think the criteria, and this is something we're working out, and we're 6 months out from needing to have hard numbers, but I think the criteria are, you are currently homeless or at risk of becoming homeless in the next, give me a time frame, 90 days, 180 days. That's 1 and 2. And we do see families like that all the time where someone says, I just lost my job, my rent is this, and I've got 3 months rent saved, right? So they are at risk of becoming homeless in the next 90 days. So that's criteria 1, is that you're at risk of homeless or currently homeless. And 2 is that you are a veteran. I don't know that we're going to do you're going to have to prove that you served in the Armed Forces of the United States, but I don't think that that's a difficult thing. I have to do it to get a discount at Lowe's, but it'll be a little more involved in that. I think that we've talked about whether you need to be honorably discharged. I will tell you that the definition of veteran usually involves people that were discharged in some honorable discharge that weren't actually kicked out of the military. Like I said, I don't know this population well enough. Bill could probably answer that question a little better. But I will tell you what Chris Stout told us when he set up the one in Kansas City and then helped Racine is you need to know that the folks that you're going to be dealing with have gone through every other option. Everyone from their family to their friends has said, you can't live with me anymore.
Yeah.
So it is going to be a very challenging group to work with, but that's the job that we've taken on. We understand that.
Yeah, I can imagine that, and I might even know one of these people, that there could be a veteran out there living by themselves now and become physically handicapped that they can no longer run their house, and then they need something like that. I can see that.
It is, and all these homes will be ADA accessible, and I think, and to go to the earlier question, when you have someone like that, if the physical disability is the only reason that they can no longer afford to sustain, one would hope that we can get them connected with folks for long-term housing, and they don't need to come through us, but maybe they come through us anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
My vision, and again, this is future state, is, and I will tell you, Judge Tully told me this, one of the most successful parts of the Veterans Treatment Court, and by the way, the Veterans Treatment Court grew out of other drug treatment courts because they realized that there were common issues to a population that they were seeing in the judicial system too often. and that if they could address some of the attendant things, what we call social determinants of health, things outside of your physical well-being and maybe mental health, but those things that they might be able to get people to not come back to court all the time. And so one of those things they do is they assign, on the Veterans Court side, they assign a veteran mentor to each person that's going to be coming into the Veterans Treatment Court system.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that that will be a part of our model too, so that you have someone that you can talk with issues about. They've got connections in the community, and it's almost like having a sponsor in substance use disorder treatments. You're going to have someone that you know gets what your issues are and is tied to you. But it's again, it's not monolithic. I can't really answer your question to say, what will each person, other than we know that they currently are unhoused or about to become unhoused, and that they're a veteran.
I don't know if this is a problem or not, but I also would think that maybe somebody will come to you and they'll have more stuff than can go in their tiny house. Is there any sort of storage facility services?
Another great question, and the answer is, I think that we're going to figure that out, but we have not built on-site storage.
Okay.
I think that it'll be interesting in terms of storing it inside the tiny home or outside the tiny home. I think that most homeless people travel pretty light, so
Yeah.
we will see.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What type of security issues do you foresee?
That's a great question. Also, I've talked with a local security company. Again, it's someone I know that I leaned on to say, I need you to give me a free security system for this place. And you're gonna definitely have some cameras. You're gonna have, and the issue would be, one, there's other people who are homeless, who are not veterans, who may see this as a place where they can come get services. And the answer is, we're going to try and redirect them to places that are currently serving the homeless population. This needs to be a community. Again, there's a sense of camaraderie and esprit de corps that we're hoping to rekindle, that most veterans appreciated. Even people who said they didn't like it when they're in the military. One of the things they miss is structure and that sense of community that you have when you're sleeping in a berthing with 100 other guys. When I was in the Navy, it was all guys at sea. Now it's co-ed. But
This would be for female veterans also.
yes, this is not specifically for male veterans. I'm just saying that there's that sense of, we put the flag up in the morning, there are things we do every day, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and there are some rules that we follow that I don't have to follow and that I have to deal with when I live in just an encampment under the 83 overpass. Security-wise, there will be some sort of fence. We're trying to figure out how that's going to look, and there will be, motion detectors and cameras, and there will be, to get in and out of our community center in particular, and in and out of the tiny homes, you will have some sort of electronic device that will let you in and out. That's the current plan. Is that it? Okay.
Okay.
Well, I have it as 4 of 10, which gives you a little time to get a cup of coffee before service.
That's fine.
All right?
Thank you.
You know a lot about this. That's great. And don't you think we should put these brochures up so
Yeah.
that when you make your minute for mission, say that there are some brochures out for anyone that's interested?
Yep, that's why